I saw he was the leading, like whenever they showed the leading passers, it wasn't Stone only threw 9 passes.
Yeah. I think, well, we can get into it in the podcast, but
Yeah, we're live.
we're live now?
Yeah.
Okay.
And let's just see real quick. All right.
Yeah, I'm not going to pull it up on my phone at the same time because I need it for the notes that I took. So we'll just have to
Sweet.
go.
We're
with it.
live.
Oh, there we go. Look at that.
Heck yeah. I'll leave mine here.
Okay.
All right. I'll start us off live from the Boulevard right here
Yes.
on the beautiful campus of SMU. You're listening to the Mustang Mood podcast. Woo!
Yeah. Oh, that was a little loud.
Big win today. Big win.
Very big win.
And we covered. Just
Yeah.
barely. But
We did cover. That is true.
And the
Yep.
overhit on the over-overs, or over-unders. That was a big moment as well.
huge.
It was one of those weird moments, right, where it was like a 59.5 over-under, and
Mm-hmm.
which projected it at like 55-5. So it was like that really weird moment where they projected them to get less than a touchdown. So I don't know how you would have gotten both the under and us covering, but it was that weird moment where I had some friends who were talking. It's like, oh, we didn't need that field goal at the end, but happens. And I don't know why you'd bet against the Stangs. So it's on them.
Exactly.
That is true. That is true. So I guess initial thoughts of the game. Actually, well,
Yeah,
First.
59-7. Ponies win.
let's just do initial thoughts.
Oh,
First.
yeah.
yeah.
Well, actually, let's introduce the new face to the podcast.
Of course.
John Morgan's joining us today. We had some guys out, and so welcome, John, to your first Mustang Mood appearance.
Thank you. Happy to be here. Happy to talk Mustang football always.
Yeah, this is exciting. This is a good time to do it. Once again, 59-7 SMU wins over the Houston Christian Huskies.
Used to be Houston Baptist.
Formerly known,
Yeah.
the university formerly known as Houston Baptist. But big win tonight. We saw a lot of quarterbacks. But yeah. So, and I'm Jay. This is Yonnic and John. So go ahead with your first impressions.
Yeah. So first impressions, a lot cleaner than the game versus Nevada. I think that something to keep in mind. I think Nevada was underrated last week. I think a lot of people didn't expect them to be as good as they are. I think they're just a better team than a lot of people anticipated. And I think everyone thought that the Nevada game would be more like the Houston Christian game this week, which was, a little bit more of a lopsided affair. But all things considered, it was a much cleaner, a lot less chippiness with our players getting frustrated. Didn't see a whole lot of really bad penalties. We had one early on that set us back a little bit in the sense that we would have had a 15-yard penalty that just pushed us down the field and, got a little chippy, and so we lost that with the offset penalties. But other than that, just real solid overall. I think the players' minds were just much better into the game. We're still doing the dual quarterback situation, which not a huge fan of, but it is nice to see that we have two quarterbacks that are competent and able to carry us to wins. So those are my initial thoughts, and the rest of it I think we'll go into detail later.
Yeah, we saw 3 quarterbacks today. Kelvin Luster looked good as well.
Yeah, that's right.
He looked quick. He definitely showed off his legs today. Like you were saying, Ponies got penalized 6 times for a total of 45 yards. Much better than the 11 for 125 last week, something like that.
It was brutal.
So discipline looked a little bit better. Still, against a Houston Christian team that we should be dominating, 6 for 45 is not great. But hopefully we can put all those.
It's definitely moving in the right direction, though.
Yeah, totally agree.
Yeah.
And sometimes I'll take some procedural penalties if it's not personal fouls that are going 15 yards the other way. So at least it did seem like a much cleaner game. A lot of those came in the second half. When you have those backups in there, and that's just them getting those reps and experience. What I didn't realize is that we ended up 369 rushing yards, almost 7 yards a carry. That to me is the biggest sign from last week. With a lot of our offensive linemen back there in the 2 deep. Still missing Chambly out, but he should be back in that rotation soon. And so nice to see what looked more like the SMU offense we've seen of old, a lot like last year, just kind of power run, spread offense that we see where we just really open it up and go right at them. Great to see Brashard Smith, I think, perhaps firmly cement himself in that RB1 role, where at least I can see him getting more carries as the year goes on, as the more kind of elusive back. LJ Johnson has that fumble early on, but I don't think that's something that's going to get him too much. And so, still a great overall game. And y'all mentioned Derek McFall getting some great play in action there in the second half. Great to see him, a guy out of Tyler who I know the coaching staff's really high on. So awesome to see him get a lot of reps because you never know when you're going to need him. I mean, you look at other teams, you never know who's going to be up in that running back room. So really great to just see this is what we should do against Houston Christian. This is what we thought we would do against a Nevada team who proved to be better than we thought. I mean, they got a win against a really good Troy team today on the road. So, you never know what to expect. But this is, I think, exactly what we would hope for SMU to look like in week 2.
Exactly. Yeah, I think, it's huge. I think you're exactly right. That's what we hope for. We're in the ACC now. We're going to need a little more depth. And so guys who are contributing really well tonight in the second half, we're going to need that depth later on the season.
Yeah.
Let's talk about this. What do we think of the quarterback play tonight? We kept in Preston a little bit longer than I thought we probably should have, and not long enough at the same time.
Yeah.
So let's keep him in. Let's give him all QB1 reps, right? Let's let him play all the first half.
Yeah, I would have
put in Jennings.
I would have maybe preferred a rotation, kind of like you're saying, if they'd given him that just full first half, be like, hey, this is going to be your 7 or 8 drives of the night.
Get into a rhythm.
Right, and they kind of spread that out over, he was playing kind of into the third quarter there, still, 6 to 9, 78 yards, 2 TDs. So he was still doing what he needed to. Looked sharper. Really, I think just the receiving core too, getting open. Granted, it is a team like Houston Christian, but just seeing the unit look much more in sync, where receivers seem to be getting into their open spaces, running those routes better. And so it was really just nice to see kind of the team just look more in focus and be able to be on it more, because we mentioned that first half against Nevada, it just seemed so out of sync. It looked almost unrecognizable of what we'd seen of this team in the past. So with all these returners, nice to see them this was the perfect type of opponent that you needed after a week like last week, just to come out and be able to get some confidence back. And also a lot of guys who are still competing for spots in that 2 deep. There's a lot of returners, a lot of transfers. I mean, there's still a lot of uncertainty for where guys are falling in. So a lot of guys who feel like they have something to prove. And I think after last week, some guys came in and felt motivated to try to make their name for themselves, even against weaker opponents. So it was really great to see a lot of them feel the need to step up tonight.
Yeah, absolutely. Before we go too much further, I want to get your guys' feedbacks on the Mustang Mood player of the game. So I have a personal take on this after watching it, and I know he didn't get basically any touches in the second half. But Rashard Smith, as you said, he's cementing himself in that RB1 role. I think that he was pivotal in that first half especially, and I think that really just getting us moving, and I think he's going to be phenomenal this year. I think that he's going to be one of the absolute mainstays for the year, and he'd be my vote actually, even over Preston Stone or Kevin Jennings. Yeah,
I think he's definitely exceeded expectations of where I came in at the beginning of the season. I thought maybe LJ or Jalen Knighton was going to be getting RB1 carries, and so I think as far as who impressed me the most today, for sure.
Yeah, I think that's probably the rational choice to go there. I'm going to go the fun route. I always enjoy seeing big man touchdowns, so I'll go with Tank Booker there, getting that fumble return there in the first quarter, just to roll with that. So, always fun to see whenever the team gets real hyped off of those. Great to see club takeaway out. It was 3 times, I think, today. Maybe it was a 4th there late.
Yep.
But
2 D linemen got turnovers.
Exactly. Yeah, that's really big. To see that, I thought the defensive line and the front 7 played better than they got credit for last week in that Nevada game. If you really look at where a lot of those yards were coming from, it was coming from whenever they're getting loose and it was getting into that second level. I really feel like this is our defensive line reminding everyone we are that type of unit, and we might have lost some guys, but we're still have that depth and we're still ready for that next step. And it'll be interesting. You got 10 Power 5 games in a row coming up where you're going to need that depth. You're going to need them to show that they have that size and physicality. And this is a great way for them to announce, hey, we're ready for that.
Yeah, and I want to say Jake Bailey is probably my 1A for player of the game.
Absolutely.
Getting those 2 touchdowns that really only was 1, but
he did it back to back. They knew it was going to him again, and he still performed and did it.
Yeah, found himself in the end zone twice. I think he did excellent today, and so
I will always be a Jake Bailey advocate. I am always advocating for him to get more catches in that slot role, and so it's always great to see him have nights like tonight.
Yeah, he got some great third down touches as well, and so
first touchdown. He led us in receiving
in 2 years. So he hasn't scored since 2022, and so it's great to see him finally find pay dirt and put some points on the board.
Yeah. Okay, so what are your guys' biggest pros? Maybe we'll start with John on this one. What are the biggest pros you could take away from the game? I know it's a cupcake game, so you can't take pros in the same way as a big game, but what'd you really like about today? If you could pick one or two position groups.
Really, for me, I might just take the both lines of scrimmage. Looking, I think the defensive line continuing to look as promising as it did last week, with a really solid effort. But that offensive line, just seeing those guys come back into that too deep. And I think whenever you were looking at last week, it was a lot of guys who, whenever you were in, it didn't really seem like it was a lot of like chemistry things. It was just like individual assignments that were getting missed. And a lot of that comes from those guys, a lot of them not having played together with the amount of transfers that you have in that line, the rotation they were trying to work in. A lot of guys who are having to play positions that they're not very used to. Seeing Justin Osborne back on the right side of that line was really great today to see him more in his natural position that he strived at so much last year. And so just great to see a lot more of the guys that we think are going to be game changers on that offensive line back in the roles that they're best meant to serve, which was great.
Yeah.
Amen.
Yeah, I'll just keep it simple. The offense played well, scored 59 points. We love that. And the defense did their job. 2 big turnovers. They scored points. And then only holding Houston Christian to only 7 points. So I think looking forward a week, we're going to need the offense to be firing on all cylinders and the defense to perform well. So,
yeah, absolutely. My first thought would be, again, the line play, just because I'm a big fan of the trenches. But the other one that I'll land on is I really did like that we were much more mentally focused this game than we were in the last game. I mean, I was really concerned that we might have a culture problem. With one game you can't jump to that conclusion, but I'm just really glad to see if you have a culture problem, you'll see it come into week 2 as well. And so, or I guess this would be week 1 because we had a week 0 game, but we saw a lot of improvement, which indicates to me it's like, okay, it wasn't a culture problem. Maybe they got in our heads or something like that early, but now we're kind of clicking on all cylinders or firing on all cylinders and just clicking away. And so I'm feeling much better about going into BYU without a lot of just dumb penalties.
It felt really good to hear coming out of last week, a lot of those star players and captains and Rhett even taking a lot of personal accountability, saying, hey, we got to get better. And that starts with me. Like that starts with how we approach day to day, how we, think games are going to go out and not taking everything for granted. Because you're at this point where you're trying to figure out, okay, are you the type of team who is good enough to worry about how you win, or just that we get wins? And so you're still trying to figure that out. It's the first time in a while SMU's had a lot of expectation. There are a lot of people sleeper pit going into a new conference, even making that Power 5 jump. And so really great for us to just see that, we have the type of locker room presence to go ahead and come into a game like this and take care of business and not let what care was there in week 0 carry over to week 1.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, real quick, Sean, I totally agree with what you're saying in the comments below. Watching tonight's game was definitely night and day compared to last week.
Absolutely.
George, thanks for the update. Nevada did beat Troy tonight on the road, so I think maybe I think everyone's been underrating Nevada, and so that's good to see.
Again, 56 new players is wild, so we didn't know what to expect last week, and so to see. I'll shout out to Jeff Schote, who's doing a great job there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and then George, also, fun fact, SMU won by 52 points tonight, which was the same number of points that Texas Tech needed to beat Abilene Christian, which is also a high school. No, it's not. Yeah,
I'm just kidding.
Abilene Christian University is right next to Abilene Christian, the high school.
Is it really?
It really is, and we played them in 6-man football.
Nice.
In high school, they are. Yeah, that's pretty embarrassing. That Tech allowed them to be
in the game like
so
that.
close. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know what the final score of that was, but
I think
it was
unacceptable.
It's 52-51.
52-51. I think
They failed the 2 point.
I think ACU went for the win in overtime, and then
Yeah.
it looked like they didn't get it. I didn't see how it unfolded, but
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can't wait to watch highlights of that. That's awful. And just also, hello, Madison. Yonnic's wife.
She is. Shout out to you. How you doing?
Hey, save it.
You're right. Okay. But yeah, back to the game. Okay, Jay, what do you, we'll start with you. Cons of the game. What are the things that we need to really address, like 1 or 2 position groups or pieces of the game that we need to really focus in on to perform well against BYU? We have a short turnaround.
I think the big thing is we're going to need to be consistent at quarterback. I mean, if I could change anything today is like we need consistency at the quarterback position, and so giving Preston those number 1 possessions. It comes down to Rhett Lashley still has not beaten a Power 4 team in his tenure here at SMU, and so we hope that changes on Friday night, but there's no guarantees, and so we'll have to see. And I think even more so the offense is the issue there. And so we're going to need to come out hot and firing. And then this whole 2 and then 2 and then
2 drives
picks,
for each quarterback the whole way through. Basically,
we can't do that on Friday.
Yeah.
So
I hope Preston's locked down that starting spot. I think it's been great to get Jennings reps, knowing how injury prone Preston can be at certain points in the year. But to me, I would just at this point choose your guy and roll with it. And I, especially going into these types of games where we can't afford to have these types of starts, or we're trying to figure that out. Hopefully, we're still getting into the scheme with Preston, where we're able to use his more dual threat ability, because Kevin's still. My one weakness and flaw with Kevin's always just sometimes when he's running where that football is, and just, sometimes prone to be a little looser at times. And I really just think that's Preston having more experience. And so I do think this team can be Kevin's at some point. I just don't know if that's right now. And I love that the team respects him enough to put him as captain, and that you have that type of presence there that shows that there's not, butting heads in the locker room. But at some point you got to make a decision and just stick with it.
Yeah. And I think, you talk about rhythm, repetition. We're not getting, we're not doing Preston any favors. He's our QB1. I mean, I think it's pretty obvious to us that he should be QB1. And so let's play him like that.
Yeah, well, Jennings probably is the better runner. He just, he's just more athletic in that way, shifty. But Preston Stone has the deep threat that Jennings just doesn't have right now. And I think to beat, we excel in kind of that air raid, lots of passes type of games. And so I think we just need to have that as our QB1. And not that he can't come in and give us some good time, but yeah, I think that's a big one. The other thing that I've been thinking of, I'm a little concerned. I'm not like jumping all over it, but our secondary, there are deep passes that came in that we weren't really punished on. But I don't know if that was so much because our secondary locked them down, more so than the receivers didn't perform at a level that a Power 4 team would. I think going against Power 4 receivers, they're going to make more of those catches that our corners maybe weren't quite as close on, or didn't stop, didn't knock the ball down and let it just kind of bounce around a little bit before they dropped it ultimately.
Right. I was going to kind of touch on that as my point of just what might be a potential con. Is I was hoping with the type of offense Houston Christian runs, where it's a little bit more pass happy as well, I was hoping to see our corners tested a little bit more. I was hoping to see some more kind of one-on-one opportunities just to see how they reacted. And granted, 11 to 27 was their passing on the day with the 2 interceptions. So he played well against a team that you should dominate like that. But now that you're about to get that jump up to Power 5 receivers every week, I would have liked for one of these first 2 teams to potentially just give our secondary a little bit more of a push and just a little bit more of a test, just to see what those guys are made of, instead of potentially we're going to have to kind of see it once we're going into ACC play and once we're getting these next 2 non-conference games that are big. So I just, maybe that's being a little picky, but just hoping that we can see this secondary that's gotten really great reviews in the offseason. All reports is that it has a lot of potential there, and I think we're starting to see that come into fruition. Hopefully, it's less penalties like it was in week 1, and they're able to kind of play into taking down some of those top guys.
Yeah. We got to step up on the defensive side. I think I don't know, is BYU as pass happy as Houston Christian is? Is that something we should be?
Yeah, I was trying to look. I know they used to be more so around like that Zach Wilson era. They've kind of rolled through a lot. I know they had a QB competition where they were messing around with like 5 different quarterbacks. They had a lot of transfers come in. I know Gary Bohannon was one of them, a former South Florida guy who has some experience against SMU back from the American days. But I didn't see who they settled on tonight. I know they looked like they got the win there over Southern Illinois quite comfortably. I think it was a little bit of a close first half, but we're able to pull away. I think my thing is that any team coached by Kalani Sitake is going to be a very physical team. They're going to want to use the line of scrimmage to their advantage to be able to set up, the play action pass, and to be able to kind of set up things on the outside. And so I think this is going to be a game that really tests the interior of that defense before a week off, where you're going to get TCU coming in, who I think showed in that first game against Stanford, where you're going to have Josh Hoover trying to throw the ball 45, 50 times. And that's going to be, I think, the big test for those defensive backs, where I think you're going to get more of a physical game next week against BYU.
Yeah, for sure. And the bodies are just going to be bigger. It's another level of competition. Even more so over Nevada. We keep praising Nevada, but we're stepping up from there.
Yeah, just as a note, BYU, they played SIU, so that's obviously it's another cupcake game. Yep. But their quarterback, Retzlaff, I'm not sure if I pronounced that right. He threw for 350 yards off, 30 passes and had 3 touchdowns. So it's
Yeah.
definitely more than what we've gone up against so far.
Right.
And so we're just going to have to
Yeah.
they're going to be they will be tested this week.
Funny enough, he's the one guy who didn't transfer in that quarterback race. The guy who kind of stayed there as the backup from last year. I know one thing with BYU, they do have their top 8 pass catchers back. And so, you know, from a room that had some mixed reviews last year, but a lot of familiarity in that room with the offensive scheme, how they run things. And so, you know, whenever you have a thing like that, it's just being sure that you're locking in on individuals, making sure those aren't the ones, you know, making plays. And so it's going to be really interesting to see. Hopefully, again, that we see a little bit of a test and a little bit of a push for our secondary to see what they're made of. But again, whenever we get, you know, into deeper play, I think we're going to see that secondary finally get the push that it's going to get all year long.
Yeah.
Okay. Anything else from this game? I mean, it's a cupcake game, so maybe not a whole lot of meat there. But what are the thoughts before we move on to predictions and stuff like that for BYU?
Keldrick Luster. I mean, didn't throw a pass, but dude's got some speed. He's got some zip to him. It was fun to see. Anytime you have a blowout game like this, seeing that tandem of him and Derek McFall out there, which you never know could be the future of our team a few years down the line. So, you know, just fun to always get a preview of what's next. And so if maybe we turn into a more kind of RPO run happy offense with all the speed that we had out there. But it's just really fun to get a glimpse of what's to come for SMU.
Yeah, he looked great.
Absolutely. Okay. In that case, real quick, maybe before we go into the BYU, just kind of a brief overview of what's happened with the ACC. I mean, obviously Clemson got kind of dismantled by Georgia. Not a great look for ACC, but Miami looks to be the team to beat. I mean, they kind of went all over and just destroyed Florida, and Florida's a very good team. I think a lot of people
the best 3-win team of all time.
If they win 8 games, they'll be in the playoffs. They're that kind of team.
Yeah. And if you think about it, Miami being so good bodes well for us next year because we're just going to get all their transfers as we keep on
there you go.
year in, year out.
Yeah,
so
for sure.
I never know what happened there. Right.
Yeah, he's really done great things for us from Miami. But yeah, I think all that being said is, you know, it looks to be that that Miami's the team to beat in the conference, and if everything goes well, we win all our games. I imagine that Miami's going to be on the other side at this point. You know, FSU I think they're going to turn it on. They're going to be a very good team, but I think Miami's actually the one to beat.
Yeah, we're early, very early in the season, but
it is early.
Miami does seem like that option.
Right. Even just seeing a lot of those middle tier teams, NC State, I know was in a dogfight with Western Carolina the other day. You saw Virginia Tech fall to Vandy today. So even some of those middle level teams that SMU was kind of seen on par with, you know, picking up some losses early on. So that makes you wonder what that rest of the year is going to look like moving forward as that opponents. And luckily, we're in the situation where we can kind of escape a lot of those teams who were in that mid level. But it'll be interesting to see once you get to that back half. You know, I think every SMU fan's looking at those last 6 games saying these all look winnable. And so once you get past that Louisville game and you have that bye, all of a sudden, you know, hopefully we're off to the races.
Yeah, if we can get to that point with 1 or 2 losses, that'd be ideal.
Exactly.
Yeah, and I think one thing that Virginia Tech game today proved that maybe it was a good thing we're not going to Nashville later this season. So,
yeah,
maybe Ball State did us some favors so we can thank them later.
maybe. Okay, so looking forward to 6 days from now, BYU, short turnaround. SMU has a 79.1% chance of winning according to ESPN. Do you guys feel like that's high, low? Where are you thinking?
I'm still trying to wrap my mind around what's so different about BYU than the team that was so competitive with so many of the elite teams in the Big 12 last season. And so, you know, they really hung around with a lot of teams. I hope that it's not a trap game. And so I'm confident that we're going to win. 79% though seems a little strong to me.
Yeah, it's funny because you could look at this game if it were played 10 years ago and you would have said, oh, we played them in a bowl game 2 years ago. We know what the roster is going to look like. But in this new age college football where you just have so much turnover, we really don't know what we're getting with this team. I mean, a lot of the coaching staff's still in place, but just still waiting to see kind of what their philosophy is going to be. I think it's really going to be, you know, there are no cupcakes at this point. You have 10 Power 5 opponents or top Power 4 opponents now coming up. And so it's going to be really interesting to see. This is what we've supposedly have been building towards, and this is what we're hoping that we're ready for. And so hopefully we're able to see if we've taken that next step, and BYU is going to be a great litmus test before a bye week.
Yeah, just to clarify on a note you said there, I think we have 8 power teams remaining on our conference and then 2 Big 12 games. So,
that's true. Yeah.
I'm new here, so I'm not still figuring that out.
Power 3, baby. I'm excited. I think the big thing to watch in years past for SMU, the trap is the defense not performing as well as you want them to. I think the trap next week is going to be our offense not performing as well. And if we can score on on a regular basis, if we perform the way we performed a lot of weeks last year, then I think it'll be no problem. But it's still a question mark in the air. I mean, this is definitely a question on Rhett's record. Can we beat a Power 4 team? And he hasn't been able to do that yet. Hopefully we cross that bridge on Friday. But I'm still I think there's a lot to be learned.
You've seen two extremes out of the rushing attack so far. You've seen the 2 yards per carry against Nevada. You've seen the 7 yards per carry tonight on over 50 rushes. So what does that look like next week? Because we've gotten 2 very big extremes. Where in that range are we going to fall? I think that with how physical I think BYU is going to want to turn this game, especially them being on the road.
Yeah.
I think that's going to determine a lot of what the outcome of that game is going to be.
If we can get to 4.5, I think
right.
We're successful. 4.5, 5. That'd be a. I think we'd win if we're at that point. It's kind of a dominant performance on the ground. And then if Preston's throwing for over 250, 300 yards, then I think we'll be sitting pretty.
Yeah, I think we're all kind of in the same boat here a little bit. I'm just hesitant with cupcake games. I'm hesitant to just feel like all the problems are just solved. All the problems that you have in a problems before were just fixed. Now that we played a team and just absolutely stomped them. So I'd say probably like 60% chance. I feel like it's like a 60-40 right now, just until we truly get tested, as John was saying. So yeah, but I still feel solid about our team. I think our run game is one of the better run games we've had in the last decade. I actually feel really confident in our run game now, which is not something I've always been able to say.
It's odd we haven't seen Kamar. Yeah, I thought that this season we'd get him out on the field a little bit more.
I want to say he's out for the year.
I think he's out for the year. Yeah, no, I think he had an injury right before the season started.
Oh, hey.
I want to say Red announced it as a knee injury, if I remember correctly. I want to say, unfortunately, it's that same knee whenever he got hurt at Alabama that year before he came here.
Bummer.
And so, yeah, that kind of...
I was really... I guess I missed that. I was really hoping that he was going to pop off this year. Thought this was, everything was looking right for that case. So, unfortunately.
Yeah, and he was kind of that, I think, mold of a lot of our running backs, where he had the ability to get away from you, but also to hit you in the middle, too. So I think it's kind of, now you have guys who are a little bit more shifty, or a little bit more of a power guy, and you're trying to find that in between.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so
absolutely.
Sean asked in the comments, what was the fan atmosphere like tonight? And do y'all think that fans are going to show up in a big way next week? I think, well, I answer the second one first. I think the answer is no. It's a Friday night, and it's almost certainly not going to be sold out. I think we'll see a more consistent. I think the people who show up will probably stay longer than they did tonight, but I imagine the numbers is going to be in the mid 20 or lower to mid 20s. We won't get up into the 30s.
Yeah, is that and how'd you? But in terms of tonight, we had more fans, I think, in this kind of opening game than we've had in a long time. I think in the last decade, since we started going to school at SMU, I think there were so many games where if we played a team that was like a cupcake and we knew we were going to blow them out, basically nobody showed up. The stadium felt actually quite full, all things considered.
It did.
I'm not that I disagree. I think Friday night is a harder night to get people out there for, but I think we'll probably be on par with where we were today. I don't think it's going to be sold out like you said.
Yeah.
But I think we'll still feel like we have a solid atmosphere, and I think the atmosphere around with the fans is just better than it's been in a long time.
Yeah. And by the time that we kicked off in the second half, it was pretty well empty. But
it was. But
I think next week that won't be the case. So I agree with you.
The difference being that we're probably not going to be up 45-7. So that'll play into it. I mean, if we are, then maybe they should stay around longer and just keep it going.
Yes. We'll see. I think it'll be interesting. We're Red Fridays. They're back. They're better than ever. And so we'll see how well people show up for that.
Yeah, absolutely. So in terms of the season, are we feeling any different, any better, any worse from tonight? I mean, I don't imagine you feeling worse after a game like this, but
no, I feel no different than last week. I feel a little down from last week, but I feel about the same as last week. Still think that there's a lot of potential. I think, yeah. Any
thoughts on your predictions before, in terms of our schedule? I mean, do you think it's just right around the same in terms of games that we're going to win, lose, feel more or less confident about Louisville, FSU?
Yeah, I think we're going to be in the 8-4 to 10-2 range, and I'm thinking on the higher side, 9-3, 10-2. But yeah, I still think we're in that range.
Still feeling strong.
Cool.
Awesome.
All right, anything else we want to cover tonight?
I don't think there's anything else. I think this is a pretty brief one. I'll let you go through all of our stuff, like, comment, subscribe stuff.
Yeah. Thanks for listening. If you could just hit the like button, comment, and subscribe. That would be great. Follow us on Instagram, over at the Mustang Mood on Instagram. Some great reels going on there. Tuesday night, SMU volleyball versus Nebraska.
Yes.
Will be. Don't know how exactly we'll cover that. Maybe. Yeah. Just keep an eye out on Instagram for how we're gonna be covering that. But
Jay and I will be at the game. So we'll be. Maybe we'll have some feedback. Maybe a special video on that.
Yeah.
The other thing is, if you want one of these hats, one of these Mustang Mood hats, send us a DM on Instagram. We got several comments on them today and several people asking about it. Reach out to us. We'd love to get more hats out there for everyone to just rep the Mustang Mood and get SMU just really out there on the map.
Yeah, and one last thing, Tejas Designs. So the TCU Suck shirts, spot 69 on the Boulevard, right over here. Just be on the lookout for them. We really appreciate what they've been partnering with us, and so just show them some love and get a great shirt. So next week is the opportunity to get that shirt before get it and wash it before the TCU game.
Yes.
And so spot 69 on the Boulevard, get yourself a TCU Suck shirt and then rep it on TCU game day.
Awesome. Thank you guys all for watching, and
yeah,
Mustang
Pony
Mood
up.
out. Pony up.